Last month, the judge issued a temporary restraining order blocking her from making those appointments without approval from trustees.
I am about to address some things as the supervisor. There will be no comments, there will be anything, it will just be me addressing you guys.
Prepare for some intense drama as we explore the tumultuous world of Dalton, Illinois, where the first female mayor of the small town, Tiffany Henyard, is making waves, and not in a good way. You have probably never heard of one of the most outrageous political scandals, but I promise you will want to know every detail after hearing about it. Fasten your seatbelts because this is going to be an exciting trip.
I've got some books that's come here. Inside I have from the United States District Court.
Tiffany Henyard declared her desire to seek election as mayor of Dalton despite being involved in numerous investigations, facing severe charges of embezzling public monies, and weathering a flurry of accusations that threatened to destroy her image. Yes, you heard it correctly. Many people are left wondering why someone so embroiled in controversy and with a track record of financial mismanagement and dubious activities would decide to run for office. Political career under such intense scrutiny. In order to comprehend this perplexing decision, it is necessary to examine Henyard's ascent to power. Her election as mayor of Dalton in 2021 was a historic moment for the small town just south of Chicago, as she became the first woman to hold the office. The community hoped for change, and she ran on a platform of transparency reform and improving the quality of life for residents, which struck a deep chord with them. The future appeared bright, and Henyard stood as a symbol of progress and new vision for Dalton, as voters grew weary of the old political guard and their broken promises. However, that optimism faded quickly as cracks appeared in Henyard's administration, and the ambitious goals that initially generated excitement were soon overshadowed by growing concerns about her leadership. Allegations of financial mismanagement surfaced, raising suspicions of missing public funds and improper allocation. Using public funds, these disclosures caused public indignation and prompted a number of investigations. What had appeared to be a bright beginning now appeared to be a chaotic decline into dysfunction, and her administration, which had been praised for its potential, started to encounter growing skepticism. As inquiries piled up, locals became alarmed by reports of dubious financial dealings, unreported expenses, and carelessness in crucial areas like insurance and senior services. Legal battles also played a significant role in the story, including a lawsuit contesting her removal from the Thornton Township Democratic ballot following her defeat in the Democratic caucus in December. These actions only served to reinforce the perception among critics that Henyard was more concerned with preserving her political career than serving the people who had elected her to office. These career challenges, Henyard's personal financial problems, which included claims of unpaid rent and ongoing legal disputes with her landlord, revealed a woman whose personal and professional lives were in chaos. Despite this, she has decided to run for re-election, a decision that many find puzzling given the increased scrutiny and investigations. One could argue that this decision is an act of pure audacity, an unreserved attempt to fight for survival in politics at all costs. Henyard might think she can still win over enough voters by highlighting her struggles and projecting an image of resilience rather than one that is weakened by controversy. Political leaders who encounter challenging circumstances frequently return to the battlefield in an attempt to turn things around and regain their position. On the other hand, some would contend that Henyard's only option is to continue her political career by running for re-election. Perched on a thread, Henyard may hope to rally her supporters by re-entering the race and framing her controversies as the result of systemic issues rather than personal failings. This could give her another chance to regain her credibility and possibly the community's trust. However, her decision to run for re-election also comes at a time when Dalton is facing significant challenges. Programs designed to assist vulnerable groups like the elderly and low-income families have been halted because of poor administration, resulting in financial chaos and political impasse. Opponents claim that Henyard has disregarded these vital services, which has increased discontent with her leadership. However, Henyard may see her re-election campaign as a chance to move past her mistakes and steer Dalton in a different direction. It could be her chance to take back control of the story and steer the community in the direction of a brighter future in spite of the harsh criticism, regardless of the motivations behind her choice. Whether Henyard views this as a last resort to save her political career or as a calculated move to reframe or image herself, her decision to run for re-election shows that she is unfazed by the unrelenting public outcry and growing opposition. Defy the odds and keep fighting for power, regardless of how contentious it may be. The fact is that Dalton is at a crossroads. The town's finances are in dire straits, and residents are dealing with the fallout from Hen's leadership. It's unclear if she can turn things around and win a second term. But one thing is certain, Hen's re-election campaign is about more than just politics. It's about her survival in the public eye as the town undergoes one of its darkest chapters. For Henyard and the residents of Dalton, the stakes could not be greater.
Administration is shameful. Y'all are a disgrace.
Almost immediately, Tiffany Henyard's leadership style was questioned shortly after she took office by trustees, residents, and even erstwhile allies who claimed she was running Dalton like a personal kingdom and making decisions behind closed doors with little open communication or public involvement. Most concerning of all, however, was her after only 1 year in power. Her careless expenditure of public funds as if they were monopoly money escalated voter dissatisfaction, sparking an unprecedented recall attempt that ultimately resulted in her removal. Locals in Dalton are tired of her. As the leadership voted to remove her, Henyard never went to back down without a fight, took the recall decision to court, and, in a stunning turn of events, managed to persuade the Illinois Appellate Court to throw out the recall votes, giving her another chance at the office she had almost lost. Suddenly, she was back in power, acting as if nothing had happened. This move left many wondering about her tenacity, or perhaps her defiance, because instead of backing down after such a close call, Henyard doubled down on her strategy, failing to reevaluate her tactics, tone things down, or mend relationships with those who had become disillusioned. If anything, her actions only drew harsher criticism, and tensions in Dalton continued to rise. Before long, the situation had gotten even more out of control. If anyone had hoped that Henyard would use the opportunity to reevaluate her leadership, they were completely mistaken. The situation became more scandalous every day, and the FBI got involved. Yes, the FBI visited Dalton Village Hall earlier this year to look into the village's financial records, but their findings were far from flattering. FBI scrutiny indicated that there was a much more significant issue with Dalton's handling of taxpayer funds, and the probe has only raised additional concerns about the financial irregularities of the Henyard administration. The allegations against Henyard have been centered on financial mismanagement and dubious activities, which have strengthened claims of ineptitude and corruption. With the FBI now involved, it is evident that Hen's contentious leadership has caught the interest of federal authorities, and the ongoing investigations have placed her future in jeopardy. And her career in greater uncertainty, far from quieting her detractors, these developments have only stoked the flames of discontent, leaving trustees and residents alike watching with increasing anxiety about what might be revealed next. Rather than portraying herself as a leader working for the community's benefit, her time in office has left her isolated with growing public mistrust and a sense of frustration that seems to escalate daily. Despite all of this, Henyard remains unfazed, which has become one of the defining characteristics of her tenure, a relentless, unrepentant drive that could very well be her demise because it runs the risk of further alienating the very people she was elected to represent, and the FBI investigation that is already hanging over her future raises the possibility that Dalton's already unstable political climate may become much more unstable. Will Henyard weather the storm she's caused, or is this the end of a political career marked by controversy and defiance? Henyard's tenure as Dalton's mayor has been characterized by mounting controversy and grave charges, putting her leadership at the target of intense examination. At the core of the dispute are the claims and allegations of financial mismanagement and unethical behavior, especially with regard to her use of public funds for lavish personal expenses instead of abiding by the principles of transparency and fiscal responsibility. Henyard has been accused of engaging in dubious spending, which has sparked public outrage and raised suspicions. There have been rumors that Henyard spent tens of thousands of dollars of public funds on a personal Amazon buying binge. The spending habit was purportedly unintentionally financed by Dalton locals, but the Amazon purchases were only the beginning of an even more ludicrous spending pattern. The Henyard claimed to have thrown a lavish Christmas party at taxpayer expense, featuring R&B singer Kay Wyatt and rapper Jay Holiday as the main acts. The event cost over $85,000, and I'm including some that were paid for with village funds. Meanwhile, Henyard, the mayor, allegedly lived the high life on public funds, leaving many wondering how such an extravagant party could be justified using taxpayer dollars. Critics contend that this event is a flagrant waste of money and that Henyard's goals are obviously out of step with the demands of her people, as evidenced by these extravagant expenditures. Merely touching the surface of a much deeper case involving her leadership, jeopardizing the town's future and her career. The FBI is currently actively investigating Hand's financial practices, and the inquiry goes further. In addition to her personal shopping spree, or FES of spending, they are investigating possible misconduct on a broader scale, such as her alleged role in awarding public contracts to family-owned businesses, circumventing the appropriate legal channels, and breaking standard procedures that guarantee equity in government transactions. Given the transparency she pledged when she first took office, her actions seem to have ignored the very principles she ran on. But the accusations of corruption don't end there. Favoritism shown to these companies by giving them contracts raises serious concerns about her governance. The FBI is also looking into bribery charges that Henyard may have collected cash payments from regional contractors in return for preferential treatment when awarding contracts. If these claims are accurate, they provide a concerning image of the public being forced to pay for a system in which a mayor abuses her position of authority for political and personal benefit. The entire situation, which is rife with corruption, reads more like the plot of a political thriller full of deceit, treachery, and rising tension. But this is not fiction. It's all taking place in the small, mostly ignored town of Dalton, where residents, many of whom had hoped for better leadership, now face the shocking reality of widespread power abuse and mismanagement. Despite the seriousness of these accusations, Henyard has not shown any signs of slowing down, which many might expect such detrimental claims to cause a politician to reevaluate their strategy or even resign and take a more modest introspective stand. But Henyard has instead doubled down in the face of mounting criticism, fighting to keep her job when a recall attempt was made in 2022 due to voter discontent. Henyard was able to turn the tide in her favor by taking the recall decision to court and convincing the Illinois Appellate Court to nullify the vote, allowing her to return to office as mayor for her legal battle. Even though the scandal was raging, victory arrived as if nothing had changed. As crisis after crisis piled up, it became evident that Dalton desperately needed leadership, but instead the town found itself in a political deadlock with no end in sight. Henyard pretended that the problems that almost cost her the job were unimportant, but in many ways, her return made the town's problems worse. The divisions within her leadership became even more apparent, and the rift between Henyard and her critics widened. Instead of concentrating on resolving the town's problems, Henyard seemed more concerned with retaining her power and protecting herself from the growing examination of the sense of imminent reckoning is only increased by the ongoing FBI investigation, as the extent of the alleged wrongdoing becomes more apparent as federal investigators continue to look into how Dalton's resources were allegedly squandered under her supervision. Findings seem to be far from putting an end to the scandal, and the more they are investigated, the more concerning they become. Henyard's continued tenure in office and the mounting legal issues only serve to heighten public discontent as she continues to pursue power, with many of the people who formerly backed her now opposing her. View her not as a leader, but as a burden. The circumstances in Dalton are getting worse due to Henyard's contentious tenure and the growing ethical and legal concerns.
Clickbait, huh? Alright. I guess anything else? I get sued all the time. Y'all.
Despite growing legal challenges and public criticism, Tiffany Henyard is resolute in her efforts to hold onto power in the midst of the chaos surrounding her political career. This defiance is stunning. Henyard has flagrantly disregarded court orders, continuing to propose important candidates without the village board's consent. Earlier this year, a judge declared that she was prohibited from assuming important roles like village attorney and police chief since she neglected to obtain the required board approval. But despite the decision, Henyard persisted in trying to get around the law and make these appointments nevertheless, resulting in yet another legal battle. Henyard's portrayal of the entire incident as an act of disrespect for authority only serves to further exacerbate Dalton's instability. Henyard's personal life has also come under close investigation, adding even more complexity to the already unstable situation, and the trustees' planned attack has further escalated the ongoing political drama. In a stunning turn of events, rumors surrounding her relationship with a man who has become central to her personal and professional problems lately garnered a lot of attention. The foundation of her defense was undermined when her lover testified against her, exposing her alleged misappropriation of public monies and demonstrating how she allegedly exploited village resources for lavish dinners, enjoyable vacations, and other excessive personal costs. With Heng's lover revealing personal information about their chats, the betrayal is astounding. Henyard's reputation has already been damaged by spending taxpayer money on personal indulgences, but this revelation adds even more scandal as her personal and political worlds collide in a way that has shocked both supporters and critics. The once promising mayor, who came to power in the hopes of bringing about change in Dalton, is now at the center of a complex crisis involving both the misuse of public funds and personal betrayals as everything plays out in real time for the public to see. Henyard maintains her authority despite growing pressure, but it's becoming more and more obvious that her political future is in jeopardy, with the village of Dalton caught in the crossfire of a story that gets stranger every day.
Very appreciative to receive the information today. We have the best mayor ever. I've been here since 1990.
The fact that Tiffany Henyard is continuing her re-election campaign in spite of the plethora of legal issues and moral dilemmas surrounding her is perplexing to many. The FBI is looking into her financial transactions, her boyfriend's shocking betrayal, and the financial collapse of Dalton Henyard. Instead of stepping down gracefully, she is stepping up her efforts to stay in power by using contentious strategies to keep her hold on the community. Her use of public gatherings to collect voter data for future manipulation has been criticized in relation to her re-election campaign. These events, which are marketed as community-building activities like Halloween parties and Christmas toy giveaways, seem innocuous and even altruistic at first. But there is a catch. Residents must register in order to participate, providing personal information such as addresses and phone numbers. Critics have voiced concerns, asserting that, in essence, they contend that Henyard is using public resources for campaign gain by taking advantage of the community's goodwill during the holidays to create a loyal voter base. This tactic has sparked outrage, with many viewing it as cynical and manipulative. Despite the growing criticism, Henyard appears unfazed and is intending to run for re-election without considering the ethical ramifications. The community is still dealing with the fallout from her leadership, and she is treating the campaign as if it were just another political ploy, ignoring the harm to her reputation. Despite this, she is adamant about keeping her political position, even though it is becoming apparent that her reputation may be irreparably harmed.
We made sure they had one, and we also told our board to come upstairs due to the fact they had several ways to exit.
Despite growing charges of squandering public funds and an ongoing FBI investigation, Tiffany Henyard's re-election campaign has turned into a turbulent roller coaster of legal issues, political scheming, and public uproar, making it impossible to ignore the insanity taking place in Dalton. One of the most alarming features of Henyard's re-election campaign is her use of public gatherings like Halloween parties and Christmas present giveaways to further her goal of holding on to power, despite the fact that the consequences of her leadership are becoming indisputable. Get residents' personal information. This contentious approach, which asks attendees to register with their phone numbers, addresses, and other identifying information, has raised concerns among many who think Henyard is using these events to not only win over goodwill, but also to create a voter database that she can use to her advantage. Critics have denounced this as a deceptive tactic that betrays the public's trust at a time when Dalton is experiencing financial difficulties. Reports show that Dalton's financial situation has spiraled into a deficit of more than $3 million, but Henyard appears more concentrated on winning re-election rather than dealing with the financial difficulties she has caused. Despite the increased public scrutiny, Henyard is refusing to back down and is instead playing the victim, saying that all of the charges against her are part of a political smear campaign that her rivals have planned on social media. As more information about her acts becomes available, her support base continues to decline despite her efforts to rally it with cryptic posts like, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" Many former allies and even village trustees turning against her. One of the most concerning findings in the saga is the audit by former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, which revealed millions of missing receipts and raised serious concerns about how Henyard has handled village funds. Despite this, Henyard is determined to muddy the waters and paint herself as the victim in a larger conspiracy in an attempt to turn public doubt to her advantage. It is unclear whether this strategy will succeed, but the pressure on Henyard is growing, and in recent weeks she has increased her legal battles against Village. Dalton Park District trustees are accused of illegally gathering outside Village Hall and undermining her authority. This power struggle, which is fueled by Connaught's internal strife, has paralyzed efforts to govern effectively. Trustees like Andrew Holmes, who was once one of Henyard's most ardent supporters, have found themselves under increasing fire from critics who wondered if they are trying to shield Henyard from accountability rather than focusing on the village's needs. Even Stan Brown, another trustee who seemed ready to break away from Henyard's influence, is still mysterious, with some people thinking he's just trying to play both sides to stay out of trouble while Dalton is still in a limbo, because Henyard's ongoing legal battles and lawsuits make it practically impossible for the village leadership to operate. Many locals see Henyard's refusal to resign as a last-ditch effort to escape accepting full responsibility for her actions. Though it's obvious that Henyard views re-election as her final chance to recover her reputation, one commenter said that if she didn't run for re-election, she would appear guilty of everything she's been accused of, a claim that seems far too possible given the growing evidence against her. As the S goes on, residents are left wondering whether Henyard can salvage her reputation or if the political and legal pressure will eventually prove too much. The situation remains volatile, and it seems like the tipping point will be reached. But for now, Henyard is pushing forward and doubling down on her re-election. The more she fights, the more entrenched she becomes in legal battles while also fueling further public resentment. Dalton is in a state of chaos and uncertainty as a result of her campaign and ongoing legal battles. Residents are wondering how long they can put up with the dysfunction and whether Henyard's plans to use public events and create a voter database will be sufficient to tip the scales in her favor, or if her web of legal issues will eventually catch up with her. Only time will tell, but one thing is certain: this political drama is far from over, and Dalton residents will have to navigate a stormy road ahead.